The autumn light over Lake Tahoe was pure gold, melting across the water in slow, lazy ripples. From the balcony of the lakeside hotel, I could see my daughter Sophie, the bride, laughing with her college friends. Guests drifted between tables, Lucas, my soon-to-be son-in-law, shaking hands like a man born to win. For a moment, I allowed myself to breathe it in. The flowers, the music, the rare feeling that maybe we'd made it through the storms. Then Lucas stepped beside me, champagne bottle in hand, a perfect gentleman's smile, a refill for my glass, and, without warning, he said, $50,000 for the luxury of being part of this celebration. Otherwise, you vanish from our lives forever. The stem of my glass chilled my fingers. I didn't turn. My eyes stayed on the lake, its gold suddenly hard as brass. 50,000 to belong to my own daughter's wedding. When did love get priced like a ticket? When did I become an optional guest in my child's life? My name is Margot Carter, 62, a woodworker from Reno, Nevada, widow, mother, shareholder. And that's when I knew I wasn't being pushed out. I'd been erased long ago. The first words out of his mouth weren't welcome or thank you. They were a number. $50,000. Not a seat beside my daughter, not a moment of gratitude. A bill. I kept my eyes on the lake, the water gold at the edges. Luxury, I said. That's an odd word for family, son. Lucas smiled like we were negotiating over furniture. It's not about family. It's about harmony. No awkward scenes, no mismatched pieces in the picture. Harmony, his version, meant silence, removal. So, I'm a mismatched piece now? I asked. You don't blend with this crowd, he said flatly. Below us I could see my name printed small in the corner. Table 19, vendor overflow. Even the florist had a better view. Blending was never my strength, I said. Once my daughter loved that. She'd sit on my workbench swinging her legs, saying, Mom, you make everything different. When did different become dangerous? The sound of heels clicked across the balcony. Sophie, my daughter, appeared in her white gown. Or you could see it as a gift to us, Mom, she said lightly. A little push for our new life. You'd be remembered as the one who made it all possible. I thought raising you was that gift, daughter. She laughed softly, but her eyes flicked to Lucas. It was. But this is different. It's a way to be part of our story. The right way. Her right way. I remembered the last time we cooked together in my kitchen. Chicken soup, her favourite. She barely touched it, scrolling through her phone, talking about brand aesthetics. That was a year ago. And if I say no, I asked. Lucas cut in before she could speak. Then you step back. Out of the photos, out of the frame. Permanently, permanently. The word landed heavily. I'd been fading from their story for years. Fewer calls, shorter visits, birthdays replaced by e-cards. But hearing it said so cleanly, so casually, was new. You're telling me the cost of a mother is $50,000, I said. It's not a cost, Mom, Sophie said softly. It's a contribution. Sounds like everyone's happiness depends on my wallet. Maybe it always had. Tuition, the storefront deposit, the nights I skipped dinner so she could have new shoes for her first job interview. My love had been a credit line they assumed would never close. I smiled faintly. I have to think about it. They thought they knew me. They didn't know I was done playing by their numbers. Lucas's smile cracked. What was left was sharper. You know what, Mum? You've been dead weight since the day I met you. The word slid off him without heat, like it was simply true. I'd heard worse, but never from the man my daughter promised forever to. In my head, I thought, did she always know this part of him? Or did she stop caring to look? Lucas, Sophie's voice cut in, low, a warning. But he leaned in, eyes locked on mine. No, she needs to hear this. You think we owe you something because you popped her out and paid a few bills. You're nothing but a damn relic, Mom, sitting around in your thrift store sweaters, pretending you built something. Relic. Beyond his shoulder, the balcony opened to the lake. I remembered the cedar chest in my workshop, the one I built when Sophie was 10. She'd called it her forever box. Some things last. Some things don't. Lucas, stop it. Sophie's words came sharper now. Why? He shot back, never looking at her. She's not part of this world. Not mine, not yours anymore. Pay the 50 grand or go back to whatever little shack you crawled out of. I thought of my porch steps, uneven but solid, the lemon tree bending toward my kitchen window, the walls I painted myself. Not much, but mine, and nobody ever put a price on it. I set my glass down on the railing. The stem made a soft, deliberate tap against the wood. The sound seemed to fold into the jazz drifting up from the lawn below, where strings of light had just flickered on. I met his gaze, steady as the mountain ridge beyond the lake. Son-in-law, choose your words carefully. Some of them have a way of coming back. He didn't answer. His jaw moved, then went still. Sophie's hand tightened on her glass until I thought it might shatter. I lifted my shawl from the back of the chair and draped it over my shoulders. The fabric caught the wind, a slow ripple. Enjoy your party, daughter. Then I turned toward the stairs. Their voices swallowed by the music, their silence following me like a shadow. The first thing I said wasn't hello, it was, Helen, my son-in-law just put a $50,000 price tag on me. Helen, my friend of 30 years, didn't blink. She set down her coffee cup and leaned forward. You're going to tell me you didn't see this coming, Mom? Mom. She used the word the way it's meant to be used, as if I were hers, not his. I looked past her toward the glass wall where the lake lay still and black. I saw something coming. Just not this shape. Helen tilted her head. Then tell me. All of it. I leaned back, fingers curling around the edge of the armchair. 25 years ago, I was a woodworker in a shop that smelled of cedar and sawdust. My hands could turn a plank into a cradle in 2 days. My husband, I paused, even now the word carried splinters, was gone in an instant. Accident, and he left me more debt than tools. Helen's eyes softened, but she didn't interrupt. I had Sophie, 5 years old, my daughter, hair like honey, always asking if Daddy would come home, and me, working 2 shifts in a rented workshop during the week, then hauling cutting boards and birdhouses to the Saturday market. She nodded slowly. You were saving for your own place back then. I was. A little dream, a shop with my name over the door. I had 3 years of savings stacked in an old cigar box. I can still hear the coins slide against each other, the soft thud of folded bills. What happened? She asked, though she already knew. Sophie happened, I said. School fees, shoes that fit. A violin because she cried for 3 nights after her music class. The dream went back in the box, then the box emptied. Helen's mouth tightened. And now she's standing next to him. I thought about that. The way Sophie stood beside Lucas on that balcony, the two of them aligned like matching bookends. When did she start echoing him instead of me? When did her voice lose the warmth we had over burnt pancakes and late-night glue projects? She's been walking away for years, I murmured. First, it was less time in the workshop, then less time at home. Now it's less me. Helen reached across the table, her hand warm over mine. Mum, you didn't just raise her. You built her stage. Every board, every nail. I looked down at my hands, still bearing faint grooves from a chisel, still smelling faintly of oil and pine. And now they're asking me to buy a ticket to stand on it. The truth of it pressed in. My love had been lumber and labour, and they'd turned it into currency. Maybe it was time I stopped paying. Helen didn't let go of my hand. Do you remember the day your daughter called you from the dorm? I nodded. She said, Mum, I think I've found it. A storefront, small but with brick walls and big front windows. She could already see the shelves, the fabrics, the light fixtures. Helen smiled faintly. And you? You sold your family's land? It was 1 acre, I said, by the creek. My father's hands had planted the willows there. I thought, if I gave her roots, she'd grow. Helen leaned back, assessing me like a case file. You gave her more than roots. You gave her the whole damn soil. I remembered walking into the bank, signing the sale papers. The pen felt heavier than a hammer. $65,000. Enough to open Sophie's atelier with a little left over for her first inventory. And then I told you, Helen said, voice firm now. 60%. You did. Because, Mom, sentiment doesn't hold up in court. Paper does. 60% meant you weren't just a backer. You were the majority shareholder. That's not just a title. That's power. Her voice sharpened, the lawyer in her surfacing. It means you control major decisions. You can veto contracts, approve or reject loans, fire management, or dissolve partnerships. If they ever treat you like a decoration instead of a foundation, you can pull the floor out from under them. Legally. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness grounding me. I didn't think I'd ever need that. I just wanted to protect her. Helen's eyes softened, but her words stayed pointed. That's why you have it. People change, Mom. Business changes faster. A shareholder agreement is like a seatbelt. You don't buckle it because you plan to crash. Her hand tapped the table lightly, a steady rhythm. You think today's $50,000 is about the wedding? It's about leverage. If you pay, you prove you can be pushed. If you don't, you prove you can't. And if they try to shove you out, that 60% is the anchor you throw. Anchor. The word stayed with me. For years, I thought I was the wind at Sophie's back. Maybe now I'd need to be the weight that kept her from drifting too far to find her way home. Helen's words followed me out of the lounge. 60% isn't sentiment, Mom. It's a loaded gun. I was done keeping it holstered. I crossed the service hall, past clattering plates and bursts of steam from the kitchen, until I found the small office behind the reception. The wedding coordinator looked up, startled. These go out now, I said, sliding a stack of cream envelopes onto her desk, each one already addressed. Lucas's investors, Sophie's vendors, the editor sipping champagne by the bar. Time-sensitive, I added, like seafood. I was gone before she could answer. Back on the lawn, the jazz band played low, and Lucas worked the crowd with that politician's smile. Sophie glittered beside him, her hand resting perfectly on his arm. At the edge of the seating chart, I touched my name. Table 19, vendor overflow. Once, then stepped away. My phone vibrated. Helen. Delivery in motion. Ready? I looked at Lucas. In 7 minutes, his world would tilt. I typed back. Anchor down. The music didn't stop. It just felt quieter. Conversations sharpened. One by one, cream-coloured envelopes were slit open. A man's hand froze mid-toast. Another set a wineglass down too hard. From across the lawn, I saw Sophie's smile crack when an investor's wife leaned in, whispering urgently, paper in hand. Lucas noticed it too, his eyes darting around the tables. Sophie, he said, moving quickly, something's wrong. She unfolded the notice with stiff fingers. They say there's an immediate freeze on Sophie's atelier accounts. Pending audit. Then her eyes found me. And they weren't confused. They were furious. Mom, what is this? I stepped forward. It's called protecting my investment. 60% gives me the right to act when funds are misused. Her voice rose just enough for nearby guests to hear. My company, my vision. And you humiliate me at my wedding? My company, my vision. How fast she forgets whose name is still on the papers. Lucas slipped an arm behind her, voice oily. She's overstepping, Sophie. She can't do this without the board. I met his gaze briefly. I am the board. Always have been, then back to her. 3 unauthorized transfers to Grant Ridge Holdings in the past 60 days. That's not design work, Sophie. That's a shell company. Her face reddened. We were going to pay it back. From where? Another loan? Another side project he doesn't want to explain? I nodded toward Lucas. Sophie's jaw trembled, but her words cut. You've never trusted me. always needing to hold the reins, like I'm still 10 years old in your workshop. No, Sophie. I trusted you enough to give you the ground under your feet. I just didn't think you'd let him start digging it up. An investor stepped closer, letter in hand. Is it true? Funds diverted without disclosure? Sophie stammered. It was temporary. Temporary or not, I said, my voice steady. Every investor here deserves to know their capital isn't financing an Aspen land grab. Her eyes burned. You've ruined me tonight. Number. I've stopped you from ruining yourself and taking me, and everyone here, with you. The circle around us tightened. Harris, the largest investor, stepped in, his voice carrying over the music. Sophie, is this accurate? Account freeze? Pending audit? She looked to Lucas, but he only gave a small, tight nod, a signal to bluff. It's exaggerated, she said quickly. It's not exaggerated, I cut in. Section 7.4 of the shareholder agreement allows me to initiate a forensic audit without board approval if there's material misappropriation. Those transfers qualify. Patel, another investor, joined Harris. Grant Ridge Holdings. I don't recall approving any vendor by that name. Lucas tried to insert himself, smiling tightly. It's part of a parallel investment that has nothing to do with interior design, I finished for him, and wasn't disclosed to the board or shareholders. The murmurs around us grew louder. Phones were out now, emails opening, some guests stepping away to make calls. A vendor, a woman in a navy jumpsuit, pushed forward. What about our outstanding invoices? Are we getting paid? They will be reviewed and paid in order of legitimacy, I said. Lucas's mask cracked. You're poisoning your daughter's reputation in front of her network. Her reputation? Or your shield? Sophie's voice broke high and tight. Mum, stop. Please. We can fix this after tonight. I shook my head. After tonight, most of these people would have been gone. Their money with them. I'm not here to burn your company, Sophie. I'm here to keep you from handing it away. Harris looked at her, then at me. 60%, he said slowly. That means she can do this. And if what's in these letters holds, I'll be filing my own legal action against whoever authorized those transfers. All eyes shifted to Lucas. For the first time all evening, he had no smile. I let the silence do its work. Then I stepped back, breaking the circle. Sophie's eyes followed me, glassy, desperate, but she didn't move toward me. The music had started again, but it was hollow now. I walked toward the garden path, the hum of tense voices fading behind me. Each step felt lighter, not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stopped pretending we were on the same side. 3 days after the wedding, Lake Tahoe was quiet again. But in Reno, Sophie's atelier burned in silence. The headlines spread like brush fire. Atelier accounts frozen pending audit. Majority shareholder triggers forensic review. Shell transfers to Grant Ridge Holdings under scrutiny. Investors who had once toasted Sophie now demanded receipts. Harris withdrew first, announcing a pause on all funding until transparency is restored. Patel followed within hours. By the next morning, 3 smaller backers filed notices of intent to recover capital. The golden thread Sophie had woven through their trust unraveled in a single tug. Vendors came in waves. The navy jumpsuit woman arrived early, flanked by the florist and the lighting contractor. They crowded the boutique, contracts in hand, voices clipped. "We delivered," one said. "Where's our payment?" The boutique's polished mirrors reflected not luxury but panic. Faces drawn, bouquets wilting in their buckets, invoices stacking like storm clouds. Lucas wasn't at the boutique. He was spotted instead at a steakhouse downtown, meeting with 2 men who specialized in distressed assets. Rumor said he was preparing to pivot, to abandon Sophie's sinking shop for a new LLC registered quietly in Denver. Sophie didn't know yet, or pretended not to. Helen sent me a photo from her office window. Sophie outside the courthouse, clutching a folder thick with legal papers, makeup streaked. Reporters swarmed, microphones angled like bayonets. The ticker beneath her image read, Carter Majority Stake Sparks Power Struggle. In the photo, Sophie wasn't a bride anymore. She was a defendant in her own life. Inside the boutique, the bright lights grew harsher as shelves emptied. Employees left one by one, first the cashier, then the assistant manager. By Friday, Sophie stood alone at the counter, rehearsing lines she no longer believed. "We're restructuring," she told a customer who only came to gawk. The woman nodded politely and left without buying a thing. That night, Lucas finally appeared, slamming the office door behind him. Voices carried down the empty hallway. Helen's contact, who leased the upstairs space, heard everything. "You promised it was temporary." Sophie's voice cracked, raw. Lucas shot back. "You signed the transfers. Your name, not mine. You think they'll chase me? They'll chase you. You said we'd pay it back." He laughed, low and bitter. "From what? Your mother's pockets? She closed that door, and now so will they." The argument ended with a crash, glass, maybe a vase, then silence. By morning, Lucas's car was gone from the lot. He didn't come back. I didn't need to see any of it firsthand. The reports, the whispers, the photographs were enough. Sophie's empire, built on my land and my labour, now trembled on hollow foundations. She had chosen Lucas's harmony over my anchor, and harmony had turned to ruin. And me? I was at my workbench, cedar shavings curling like ribbons, the scent of pine steadying my breath. The audit letters were filed, the investors protected. My part was done. Revenge wasn't in watching them collapse. It was in knowing the collapse no longer pulled me under. For years I had been the safety net, the silent rescuer. Now I was something different, not a relic, not dead weight. A foundation they could no longer touch. Later that night, the parking lot was almost empty. My heels clicked against the asphalt until I reached my old sedan. I sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, the echo of music drifting from the reception like a memory I'd already outlived. I thought of Sophie, 10 years old, sitting cross-legged on the workshop floor, sorting wood scraps by size. She used to hum when she worked the same tune over and over. Back then, every cut, every splinter, every sale at the weekend market was for her. Always for her. Somewhere along the way, she stopped humming, and I stopped being part of her story. But tonight, for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the one left behind. I felt whole. Not because I'd won an argument, but because I finally remembered who I was before anyone needed me to be their safety net. The road curved along the lake, moonlight skimming the surface. In the passenger seat sat a folder. New business registration papers, a name I'd chosen weeks ago, Margot's workshop. Small, modest, mine. I wasn't driving toward revenge. I was driving toward peace. Toward mornings where I'd make things with my own hands again. Toward a life that didn't shrink to fit someone else's comfort. People will say I was ruthless. I embarrassed my own daughter. Maybe they're right. But if loving someone means letting them destroy everything you've built, then that's not love. That's surrender. And I am done surrendering. The lake disappeared in the rearview mirror. The road ahead was dark, but for the first time in decades, it was mine. So, that's how the story ends. If this made you think, or if you've lived through something similar, share your thoughts in the comments. Our channel is a space for sharing tales of the elderly and family revenge stories from people who have weathered life's storms. Subscribe to the channel for more, because sometimes the deepest form of revenge is simply living on your own terms.